Recently, as I've become more in touch with film, there's been something that sticks out to me among the sheer number of films I've seen. There has been no other trilogy that has generated such emotion and love for me than Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A golden standard of film. For every moment of the trilogy, I was glued to the screen, awaiting every next moment with bated breath. And after all of the hundreds of films I've seen, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly still remains my undefeated champion, up against the likes of many other genres, directors, and time periods. The whole trilogy is a work of art. Not only would it revolutionize film as we know it, but it also coined an entire genre to its name, the spaghetti western. As a person getting into film, I was convinced that I found the western genre boring and overused, and I still stand by that statement. However, anyone who has watched any film from Leone will tell you his works are more than westerns. Stories about hope, brotherhood, justice, and adventure. Stories where the stakes are high and no punches are pulled. These stories remain all-time cinema gold. I see this praise sung from only one movie in the trilogy, namely The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It clearly changed and revolutionized cinema, and damaged pop culture and westerns beyond repair. I find it unfortunate that the other two movies in the trilogy do not get their chance to shine, namely, For a Few Dollars More.
Didn't hear what the bet was.
Your life.
The story told by For a Few Dollars More is intricate, intertwining different characters' motivation and story beats seamlessly, all to build up to that classic tense Leone standoff. The film opens with characterizing the two lead protagonists, Colonel Douglas Mortimer and the man with no name himself. He's often referred to as Manco throughout the film, by friends and enemies. The two are bounty hunters, separate to one another, and they both individually learn of a bounty target, the cold-blooded El Indio. Indio's number one goal is to rob the esteemed Bank of El Paso, containing almost $1 million. Mortimer gets himself in trouble with the group, noticed by Manco, and it leads to one of the best scenes in the film. We'll get more into that later. After the two bounty hunters agree to partnership, Manco sets out to join Indio's gang as a spy on the inside. Indio's plan to rob the bank is coming to fruition, but Manco has other plans. After gunning down 3 of the members of Indio's gang, he sends a telegram to the El Paso security to Santa Cruz, where they suspect another bank robbery is occurring. The stage is set for the robbery. The gang blasts the wall and gets away with the safe. Manco returns to the gang, now suspicious of him. Nonetheless, the money is theirs, and they ride into a small town of Agua Caliente to open the safe and split the spoils. However, a cunning Mortimer waits there for them, and after a second run-in with a gang member, he kills him. Mortimer agrees to open the safe if they let him live. Indio has no choice but to begrudgingly agree. Manco and Mortimer, however, have other plans. They break open the safe, trying to take the money for themselves, but are caught and attacked. Indio begins a chain of killing his own gang members. First the guard of Manco and Mortimer, then the man he killed the guard with. He knew Manco and Mortimer were bounty hunters all along, but before he can realize the mistake of cutting down his group, the box is revealed to be locked by Mortimer. Manco and Mortimer begin their great escape, shooting bandits left and right until they make it to Indio. Manco recognizes that Mortimer is after Indio and Indio alone, so he lets the two argue between walls. However, all begins to go wrong when Indio disarms Mortimer and asks him to a duel. All hope seems lost until Manco appears at the last second, in the classic man with no name style, gives Mortimer a chance with his own gun belt. Mortimer guns down Indio in the duel, Manco takes care of whatever gang members remain, and the two ride their separate ways. Mortimer, his revenge and a small sum, Manco, a much larger sum, and the death of Indio. There is immediately a lot to explore, through the rich dialogue and unique characters. We'll take a deeper dive into Mortimer and Indio later, but for now, let's shift our attention to the poncho-wearing grizzled hero of these stories, the man with no name. Consistent across all the trilogy, he is a tough hero that isn't bossed around by anybody, who rolls the dice but chooses his battles wisely. Skilled with a pistol, we see him shooting down men in a bar, blending in with a gang of bandits, and interrupting duels at the last moment. It's safe to say his popularity as a protagonist is deserved. The friendships he forms, the schemes he makes in the heat of the moment, these things not only act as a tense and thrilling way for the story to progress, but allow for other characters to share the spotlight. Namely, Douglas Mortimer, who we'll touch on in more depth later on. Not only is such an iconic and lovable protagonist taking the stage, but the cinematography and film work behind Leone's films are some of the best in cinema. From the thrilling close-up shots in intense moments, to the droning landscape shots of horse riding through the desert, every scene is shot perfectly and with care in every detail. Not only this, but Ennio Morricone's soundtrack has been cemented in pop culture as the quintessential Western soundtrack. Heroic themes, recurring sound effects, tense build-ups. The soundtrack and the cinematography work hand in hand to create a gripping and incredible Western that only makes the story and the characters all the more interesting. But sometimes a film needs more than just a good protagonist and good cinematography to win over audiences, to be a truly amazing film. Sometimes you need a good antagonist. In my eyes, Indio is the example I bring up when talking about what a Western antagonist should look like. Not only does he have purpose behind his villainous actions, he has unique subplots that tie into the lives of the protagonists and drive the narrative. Giving Indio a motivation and a backstory justifying what he does is perfect, as most villains in Westerns are one-note bad guys that solely exist as a hurdle for the protagonist to jump. We see in the film, through flashbacks, that he was interested in a woman, who appears to be very happy with another man. In the flashback, he kills the man and proceeds to exploit the woman before killing her out of guilt or shame. He took the man's symbol of love for her, a pocket watch with her face and a small tune that plays when opened. This tune goes on to become a motif throughout the film of Indio and his troubled past. He acts sporadically and suspicious of any new people due to the trauma and guilt that haunts him to this day. Peeling back more layers, after Indio's defeat at the hands of Mortimer, we find that the woman in question was Mortimer's sister. Mortimer set out after Indio for a sense of redemption for his late sister. Indio recognizes this, and throughout the movie avoids any confrontation with Mortimer until he is left with no choice. Indio is not a foolish villain that uses aggression or dominance to gain control. He earns respect from his gang members out of fear. They fear failing him, as they have seen his vicious and tormenting nature of punishment. When the Chimes End is also a brilliant way of characterizing his hidden emotional weakness. He uses the chime before duels as a way to fill his heart with anger and remorse. He's grappling with the PTSD and trauma from that event, and this fills him with the emotion to win every duel. This occurs many times throughout the film, and there's only Manco, at the end of the film, that can create a barrier between Indio's trauma and his gunslinging abilities. Indio is a villain with purpose, with motivation, but humanity. Humanity in not being able to understand his emotions, but he is established as an effective villain by using this emotional trauma for evil. But as we know, India is not the only character in the film with strong emotional trauma.
No, old man. Thought I was having trouble with my adding. It's all right now.
As I said earlier in the video, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly is my favourite film of all time. I love every second of the film. The characters, the cinematography, the acting, the score. But a fellow film enthusiast co-worker of mine prefers A Few Dollars More to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. We've had many discussions about it, but he raised a point that sat with me ever since. Lee Van Cleef is better at acting the hero than the villain. Now, of course, I love Angel Eyes, his cunning plans, and sheer power. But it is undeniable that Mortimer is one of the best Western protagonists in not only the Dollars trilogy, but Westerns as a whole. Mortimer is superbly acted by Van Cleef, and in tandem with the writing, we begin to watch his life unfold, alone and with a new accomplice. The brotherhood and relationship between Manco and Mortimer is incredibly told. Their first instance of seeing one another is through telescopes across hotels. Then, their first personal meeting at night begins with them shooting each other's hats. Manco demonstrates his speed but lack of accuracy at long range, and Mortimer shows his moderate speed, high precision. The film is littered with brilliant callbacks like this one. Not only does it make the relationship between the two characters stronger, but it makes for an infinitely rewatchable and enjoyable experience to anyone. If not for the plot and other elements, this film shines alone by showing us the relationship between two bounty hunters as they learn to work together and play off of one another.
Bravo.
Calling back to the scene with India's henchmen, we learn without dialogue that Mortimer has the confidence and courage to work his way out of any situation. He is established as a long-time bounty hunter and has no fear for simple gang members. He has seen them come and go over his years. Originally, solely driven by the redemption for his sister, we watch as he slowly forms a relationship with Manco, the two always attempting to outplay and outmaneuver one another on the journey to find our Indio. But Mortimer is always one step ahead of Manco, time and time again. We as the audience learn that experience speaks louder than confidence. Never does this experience and confidence, however, feel stale. Mortimer always raises the stakes with every new situation, even surprising a normally stone-faced Manco. We as the audience are constantly awaiting his next cunning plan or large gamble. I wouldn't say that Mortimer is a quintessential Western protagonist, however. That role would be going to the man with no name. What Mortimer does do is breathe life and perspective into an already rich and deep film. His moral compass and motives add another layer of incredible writing to an already beautiful film. His friendly competition with Manco, his calm but burning redemption against Indio, his respect as a long-time bounty hunter, the perfect secondary protagonist the film needed to reach the soaring heights that it did. In true Leone fashion, all the interwoven and planned elements tie back in during the climax to create one perfect and infinitely gripping finale to one of the best films of all time. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed this different style of video, and if you did enjoy it, make sure to share and leave some support. If there's any other films you'd like to see me cover, let me know in the comments. I've also linked my Letterboxd account in the description of this video if you want to see some of my opinions on other films, film rankings, or the rest. Thanks for watching, hope I see you guys next time.